Hello again. Welcome to another episode of the Nile and Gerry Tea Podcast, a podcast where we talk about all things Magic the Gathering, drama, competitive scene, how to be a good player, stuff like that. I am your host, Nile Joan Rivers. Joined with me, as always, is Jerry Thompson. Here at the top, just want to say if you like the show, leave us a little like, a little comment, tell your friends, do a little repost. Any of these forms of engagement, very helpful. Do a lot. Do it now. Take a little pause break, and then do all the likes and comments and everything, and then just come right back. But that's us. Jerry, how you doing?
Good, a little sleepy, a lot of travel. Was looking forward to taking a break. Think I volunteered to do more traveling. So it never ends.
It's how it always goes. I'm always like, "Oh, I'm not gonna do this event. I'm gonna take a break from this event." And then as I get closer, I'm like, I'm doing it. Here I am." It was a miracle that we both didn't do Denver a couple months ago. That was growth, I think, for me personally. Not
Yeah,
not not going to SCG Denver.
I think it was for me too. And it was certainly nice having each other to just be like, "Oh, it's okay if we don't go." And then it was like,
Yeah.
"Oh,
What if
thank
what if
God."
we just don't?
Oh,
Yeah. That made it a lot easier for sure. Yeah, I saw you hold up your Red Bull at the start there. Got my energy drink as well, my Monstar. It's one of those nights, one of those days. And by one of those, I mean every day.
yeah,
It's every day.
most.
Yep. But yeah, so in tonight's episode, we have quite a bit to talk about. We are talking about a problem that has been pervasive in Magic and especially competitive Magic, maybe forever. And this is a problem of accountability, which is to say, when you learn that someone who you admire or once admired maybe sucks for various reasons, maybe they cheat at Magic, which sucks. Maybe they are a shitty person, which sucks. Maybe they just did a shitty thing, which sucks. Oftentimes within the Magic community, when these things are found out, people just aren't really held accountable. And a big reason I think is because they are good at Magic, which is a really dumb reason to not hold someone accountable. Like if someone does a shitty thing, especially socially, it shouldn't matter if they're on your testing team. It shouldn't matter if they are coaching you through Magic. It shouldn't matter how good they are in general at this card game. If they did something shitty, they should be held accountable for doing something shitty. And that just doesn't really happen. So that's going to be what we're talking about. And Jerry here, old Pro Tour Jerry, has some specific examples of this through Magic's history, starting us all the way back to Pro Tour Amonkhet, which who knows when that was. When was that, Jerry?
2016.
2016. Jerry, tell us about Pro Tour Amonkhet.
There was a lot going on. Basically, I view this as heartbreak in a lot of ways. People say
Mhm.
never meet your heroes, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what happens when you happen to meet your hero in the finals of a pro tour, which is what I did?
Exciting. It's an exciting thing.
Exciting, but also I'm just like, well, I'm gonna lose, right? Like that just makes sense because I look up to this guy. This guy is the best active player, also has a finals loss already. One of the big things that he is missing is Pro Tour victory. And I'm just like, the storyline writes itself, you know? And long story short, I do win. And a lot of, conflicting emotions and whatnot for sure. But I don't know, it was very, very weird all around. Yuya is a person who is won player of the year twice. He was sort of a world champion. They called it the players championship back then, but it was effectively the same thing. And he was this guy that was almost like by the entire community, the entire pro community, like looked up to in terms of just being a paragon for good sportsmanship, integrity, fair play, his dedication to the game too. Like just when he was playing games, he took it seriously, but if he were in a bad situation and he did something like his opponent did something funny or whatever, like he would still be
Mhm.
laughing. if it was a close game and his opponent peeled on him, and now the opponent's very far ahead, it would be very known on his face. Like he would make a face and a noise and like kind of chuckle about it, whatever. Like he was seemingly just a good dude, and also just won a ton. 7 top finishes, which is like Pro Tour equivalency things, 29 Grand Prix top 8s, 7 wins. Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year. He got his start by basically being shot called by Kenji Sumura, who before Yuya was kind of the person like that too. Like everyone looked up to Kenji. And Kenji was just like, oh, this is my little friend Yuya. He's going to win this tournament. Yuya did win the tournament. And his pro career kind of catapulted from there. So yeah, like I beat this guy in the finals of Pro Tour. Didn't make any sense. It felt like the timeline was fucked.
Yeah, like a moment where you're like, oh, I know I'm not the main character, but then the main character shit happens to you anyway.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, I guess they just got him on some bogus second training arc or something. Like that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, super weird. It's also made even weirder because I guess this pro tour, I found out a little bit about how the human body works and how maybe allowing yourself to get dehydrated is not a smart thing to do. So
was that your strategy for the weekend? Is to get dehydrated?
Not consciously, no. I guess it did work in theory, but basically by the end of day 2, I've like this massive migraine, and eventually on the ride home, my friend Josh is ordering food, and he knows that I'm just out of it, and he's just like, all right, man, I'll get you just some pepperoni pizza or whatever, just a thing that you will be fine with. And we get back to the Airbnb. I take a bite, immediately throw up, go to bed.
Yikes.
Wake up in the morning.
What did I eat?
Yeah, wake up in the morning, throw up again, go play top 8 of this Pro Tour. Entire time, just migraine. I'm dying. But top 4, I still can't explain what really happened. But I ended up using a Grasp of Darkness, a card that gives -4/-4, to my opponent's 4/5 creature.
Interesting strategy.
Again, it worked out. I won the match. But I pointed this at my opponent's 4/5, Ken Yukihiro, and he looks at me like, what are you doing? And then he moves his finger over to his 2/2, and he's like, you meant this one, right? Basically. And I was like, no, I did mean the other one. I realize it's not going to die, but I did it. I am not one to ask for takesies backsies.
Yeah. Especially not on, like the Pro Tour, yeah.
So I was just, top 4 of the Pro Tour, like where the camera match too. I was just like, yeah, your turn. So anyway, beat this guy. He probably feels some kind of way about it, whatever. And I'm standing on the edge of the stage waiting for us to be called up to go play the finals. And Yuya, my hero, my goat, walks up behind me, puts his hand on my shoulder, and just like nods, like, good job or whatever. And I just shake my head. I was like, no. Grasp of Darkness. And he's just like, yeah. And then he like just still points at me and he says, good player. I'm just like, this guy's so nice. What the hell? So we play. Yeah. I beat him. I'm scooping up my cards. He takes his headphones off. He says something. I can't hear him because I still have these, white noise machine headphones on or whatever. I take them off. I'm like, what was that? And he points at me and he says, good player. It's like, dude, what the hell? Made me tear up after I won the PT. I was being all stoic, collecting my cards. Now I'm just in my feelings.
Yeah, I mean, like the guy, like one of your like number one looked up to people. I mean, you just fought him in the finals, the PT, beat him, and then he's like,
he's trying to cheer me up.
Yeah.
Crazy. Anyway, fun fact, that guy was cheating the whole time.
Describe his cheat? Because it's egregious.
Well, when you see it, yes. So, a lot of lore here. No one suspected this guy of cheating, for the record. But I believe it was Pro Tour London, where Yuya makes top 8. Everyone who makes the top 8 in these higher level tournaments, they generally have to turn in their deck to get deck check, just to make sure, like, hey, your sleeves are good. You're going to be playing on camera for tens of thousands of people, etc. Just want to make sure there are no issues. And I think I was like out of the PT and coming back to the site, maybe to collect some homies and then go out for dinner or something. And I just hear someone like, "Oh, Yuya got DQ'd," and I was just like, "No way!" And get in there, start hearing more information. And it's like, "Oh no, he was actually DQ'd. It is the Yuya that I'm thinking of." And it was for Mark sleeves. And I was like, well, surely dude just accidentally hacked a couple sleeves, judges.
Yeah, totally, totally.
Yeah, just cope, all the way down. And then you see the pictures of him because for some reason, his sponsor decided to just post like high res images of all his sleeves to say that he got framed? Question mark.
That's why? That's why they posted?
Yeah.
You sent me the article for this, and I looked at it, but it was not in English, and I did not click any of the translate this buttons. So I just like looked at the pictures, and I was like, I
So,
don't get why they posted this, but I just assumed it was some kind of like, yeah, he got DQ'd. Here's why. Because the sleeves, they're really marked. They're like
yeah,
and
so
it's all the Tron lands.
yeah, that's what it was. It was all the Trog lands. They're all marked where the corners are bent on the same corner of the deck. And if you knew Yuya, certainly if you looked up to him and watched his matches, watched him play and studied him, you noticed a person's like mannerisms and like their
Mm-hmm.
characteristics. And Yuya was a person who very often had his deck sideways.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of like sleeve bend thing where it was if you're looking at the card, it's on the bottom left. So if his deck is sideways,
Mm-hmm.
it's the one facing his opponent.
Mm-hmm.
But then you go and look at some of his camera matches and you see that, well, for a little bit of the time, maybe the deck is a little bit more vertical. And so he has a better handle on that. And then once he completes the Tron, deck goes back to being sideways. So his sponsor, Psy Games, they are a Japanese company. He is a Japanese player. They make a game called Shadowverse, which I enjoyed and played a decent amount. I went to my first DreamHack to play in a Shadowverse tournament. I was notable enough through uh just like Magic and Shadowverse and being a public figure that like when there was a pro tour in Japan, they invited me to tour their offices in Tokyo, which I happily did. I was like,
That's
yo,
so cool. That's
Psy
so
Games
fucking
rules.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were also the sponsor of like the top Japanese team, you know? And so you gets caught, he gets DQ'd, and Psy Games is like, nah, he didn't do it. We have proof. Here's the proof. And it's just like, what? And to this day, he works for them. He works on Shadowverse.
That's crazy. Also crazy that Shadowverse is still a game, is what I'm learning in real time.
What the hold on.
Okay.
Whoa. Wait. Shadowverse is fine. Okay. Don't
I didn't
they're
I did I that wasn't like a dig at Shadowverse. That was like I literally have never heard of this game before 5 minutes ago. So I assumed it was like a game that was not in production.
Oh, well, they got version 2 coming out pretty soon, I think, and they just launched like a paper TCG and they have a bunch of big tournaments in Japan. I don't know.
Is it better than Gundam? Gundam looks pretty fun.
I don't like the mecha
The Bandai's?
stuff
Oh,
really.
sure.
So, I
Sure, for
haven't looked
sure.
at it too much.
Gundam looks fun. But
All right.
also is a Bandai game, so comes with some inherent risks, I think.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be run very well. Well.
Yep, yep, yep.
So,
Yeah. So he works for the people that were like, he didn't do it. Here's the proof, and then the proof was like the smoking gun of him totally doing that shit.
yes. And now because they were so helpful and posted these pictures, even people who were on the fence, and there weren't many because it's like you get DQ'd at a pro tour, someone says all of his Tron lands were marked, and the pro tour judges are really good and they're just like, yeah, this guy cheated.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they liked Yuya too, you know?
Yeah,
Uh
yeah, totally.
at what point can you realistically be like, nah, not him. That's my goat, you know? But then Side Games posted the pictures and it's just like, oh yep, all hope is gone.
Okay, so PT London is happening, you start hearing the murmurs of Yuya's DQ'd, marked sleeves. You're coping up a storm, right? You're just like, oh, this happens. Oh, probably accidentally banged up some sleeves during the play, whatever. You're coming up with all these excuses in your head, all these reasons. At what point through all of this do you think you personally, Jerry Thompson, do you first feel the wave of kind of acceptance where you're like, "Oh, he did do this." And like when is like the fall from grace in your mind and in your heart?
I mean, pretty quickly when it gets to the point where the evidence looks really bad, and this is like way before the
Mhm.
pictures. This is Yuya's sleeves were marked. All the corners on his Tron lands were bent. It, like not all of them,
Mhm.
but like for two of them, right? It was like
Mhm.
tower and power plant or something. Because
Right.
marking all 12 of them doesn't really make sense. If you already have a mine, you don't need a mine.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, that kind of thing. Where it was like, no, this is too much to be like a random coincidence. And
Right.
again, like I have faith in like the higher up judges. And I know that for sure the judges are looking at this and they're like, Yuya? Like they don't want to DQ this guy. It looks bad. It is bad. They don't they've been judging tournaments that he's been in for at least a decade at this point, close to 15 years, and it's just like zero suspicion of cheating. And like
Mhm.
people have had oopsies all the time. People have like borderline made up stories about people all the time.
Mhm.
Zero for Yuya. Literal zero.
Mm.
And I was just like, yeah, I guess he did it. And now I'm wondering like how long has he been doing this shit? Because it could just be a an instance of like, oh, the pressure got to him. Like he's been number one for so
Mhm.
long, and maybe he felt like he was having a bad season or what, blah blah blah. And it's like, no, I don't think so. I think his season was actually going pretty well, but I would have to double check on that, I guess.
Sure, sure. Do you feel like the community at large and like your peers and stuff at the time, do you feel like they followed a similar trajectory as you in terms of like hearing this news where they were like coping at first, but then like around the same time as you started to be like, "Oh, no, this is for real."
It's so weird because the Pro Tour hall and like the dinners and certainly on Sunday too, it was like we were all in like one of those group therapy sessions. And like people are going through the different stages of grief or whatever, but like we were all kind of there for a lot of the same reasons. And I don't know. I feel like maybe I got there pretty convincingly faster than
Mhm.
a lot of folks just because the
Mhm.
evidence was bad. And it's like, yeah, that's my guy. But like, I got it's easier for me, I think, to be like, well, if his strong lands were marked, he's not my guy anymore, just
Yeah, yeah,
straight
yeah.
up. And instead of but I think most people's reaction is like, gotta defend my guy until I die. And mine is
Mhm.
like, oh shit, I'm embarrassed that that ever was my guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
gotta get off it as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I feel like that is much more my reaction to things, like I think with just about anybody, the only exception being like my true greatest bestest friend, High Pill Knock. Um if she did something, I'd be like, "You're wrong. You're fucking." I would like beat that. I would be so sure. It would take everything. It would take the world for me to be like, "She did that shit." Anybody else, I'd be like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I ever fucking backed this horse. This is so embarrassing. I can't believe I got tricked by this person." Like I don't know. I think everyone processes this stuff in different ways. But I think I'm very much in the camp of like if I mean like you said, like if his Tron lands are marked, he's not my guy. And I feel embarrassed that he ever was my guy.
Yeah, and I just don't wanna be associated with him anymore, you know? And
Mhm.
I want to distance myself from that as quickly as possible because it's just bad, and I don't feel good about it. I would wanna pick another guy, but, to
Yeah,
this
yeah.
day, I don't really have one because there isn't one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So you accept it and then you start to wonder how long has he been doing this?
Yeah, and I think people ask that question kind of hypothetically, and I did not hear of anyone actually going back and doing the work and trying to find out. And normally you would probably see some sort of like Reddit thread where someone like that is their special interest for the week is just like watching all of
Sure,
Yuya's
yeah, yeah,
matches. Well, that was me. That was me. I went back
yeah.
just whenever I had some free time. I would go back and watch the matches, and yeah, it was not good. Saw a lot of the same things going back as far as the 2012 Players Championship that he won, where he played his countrymen in the finals, doing the exact same stuff in terms of marking his Bloodbraid elves in his Jund deck, and the deck
Mm,
like designation being like vertical, horizontal, depending, him cracking fetch lands at weird times.
mm.
Yeah.
That's tough. That's really tough. And also, like, I don't know, it's very interesting that, I mean, like you said, a lot of people do ask, sort of hypothetically, how long has he been doing this? When you don't have to ask it hypothetically. We have that data, like we have all of this recorded footage of you playing. And maybe I am wrong for thinking this, but I feel like the nature of the competitive community today is way more likely to have done that, to have like gone through and been like, well, let's just comb a bunch of old footage and see. Um,
Maybe. I I think the thing was that it was heartbreaking for a lot of us.
so they
And
didn't want to know.
yeah, exactly. But I hate myself. I am a glutton for punishment, and I very rarely back a horse,
Yeah.
and I just had to know. And yeah, I got to relive all that heartbreak again. It sucked.
So now at this point, like you've accepted it once, and then kind of you've accepted it twice because you've now also accepted, oh, he's been cheating forever. At this point, do you feel like you and the community are still sort of on the same page about Yuya? Do you feel like where like once the dust has settled a bit, is the vibe very much like, oh fuck that guy? Or is the vibe more like is it more dispersed? Like are there people who are like, no, it was a mistake. No, like what is the impression? What is the community impression of him?
I would say it's about 80-20. The vast majority, especially for people in the know, like people who have played on pro tours, are just like, love that dude. That sucks, but fuck that, ban his ass, you know?
Mm,
And the people who were not quite in that camp were still coping very hard, where it's like, well, maybe Side Games is right. Maybe it was a setup. Maybe everyone is racist and xenophobic. And it's like, well, yeah, I kind of agree with that. But like, I don't think so in this instance. I don't think you like,
yeah, yeah.
you go after this guy, you know?
Right,
Um,
right.
so I, what the hell even brought this up? What made me think of this, the Yuya stuff?
Um, well, I mean, we talked about how there's no accountability in the space, right?
Yeah,
And
I started telling you about this, and then that put me down the rabbit hole of like, I'm gonna go look at my old tweets.
oh
And
yeah, yeah.
but I was wondering how I even, like, got to that point, but whatever. So, uh, I can remember a lot of very specific instances involving Yuya where I was, tweeting for one reason or another. And, one of them was after the fact, and I think it was, like, 2022, so, like, 3 or 4 years after this dude has just been deleted from Magic. And it was when something else had happened in the community. I believe it was in the commander space, and it was kind of a similar incident where I don't remember if it was the guy that had a YouTube show that is like also a director and like had treated women very shitty or
Mhm,
whatever. I
mhm.
think it was that guy, but it could have been someone else. I don't recall.
Sure, sure.
And I just made this tweet that was something to the effect of it's actually cool to change who you like when presented with new information, more or less. Where it's like, you can like a person, but then if new information comes out that says you shouldn't like this person, or like if you had that information beforehand, you would not like that person, then just change it, right? And then I kind of jokingly responded to it with, "This is about Yuya," even though
Mhm.
apropos of nothing, like no one has brought this guy up for years or whatever. I was just like, I don't know. So the commander people don't come at me, more or less, because they were going hard in the paint for this dude, just like defending him. I was like, I like his
But,
show,
like,
therefore I don't care.
come on.
So then I had a bunch of people in my replies talking about Yuya, and it's like, well, maybe that was the first time, and I'm just thinking like, I know it's not,
Mhm.
but every single stage of grief was present in my replies still. Like people had still not yet gotten to acceptance. So there are
Yeah.
some amount of those folks. And then I think that overall, I certainly don't want to speak for the entirety of a community or a country or whatever, but like it
Yeah,
did
yeah.
seem like a lot of the Japanese players were like, "Nah, we don't believe it." And I don't know if that's some amount of like, I don't know, like he was our best and it
Right, like,
is
pride or something.
yeah, it's like, no, I don't want to say like, oh, he's all we got, because that's not true. Like they had, 20 of the best active
Yeah.
players at any given time, right? But I don't know, it was just kind of weird to see them like blanket defend him and still continue to fuck with him, and like side games hired him full time, no sweat.
That's wild. That's wild. And I feel like, and tell me if you agree with this statement or not. I feel like as a community, we have an easier time doing this with people who cheat at the card game than any other sort of social infraction.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think everyone who plays in tournaments understands why cheating is wrong, even if they have not had it explained to them in the way where it would make the most sense, where it's like it is stealing. Like if
Mhm.
you play in a tournament where someone is cheating, even if you do not play against them, they
Right.
are effectively stealing from you. They are stealing some amount of equity from literally everyone else in the tournament.
Mhm.
And that's messed up. And people can all agree on that. And because it affects them directly, I believe, is the reason why it is so easy for them to take a hardline stance on it. And now there are still some people where their friend gets caught cheating. Saw this with the Boros charm in his coat guy at the NRG thing, where had a dude on Twitter defending him, and for all I know, it could have just been that guy himself. I don't know,
Yeah, yeah. Just an alt
but
furiously defending himself.
it was like, he is my friend. He won't cheat. He's the nicest guy I ever met. Yuya was everybody's hero
Mhm.
and had been cheating for probably 10 years.
Whew.
But yeah,
Yeah.
you compare it to, let's say, a situation like the Owen situation,
What's the
where
Owen situation?
yeah, so there are rumors about this person committing like varying degrees of sexual assault. And this has been known by some, eventually known by a few more people, to the point where it's kind of like the Pro Tour's worst kept secret. And
Mm.
Wizards has been made well aware of this fact. And
Mhm.
up until the point where one person posts on Twitter, like, I'm sick of this. Tomorrow, I'm just going to post this manifesto of like all the stuff that happened, all the stuff that this guy did. Wizards
Mhm.
banned him the next day, like preempting that. And then, okay, it's not cheating. It's way worse, right? It's way,
Mhm.
way worse. But for some reason, it's maybe like 80-20 the other direction. 20% of people are like, all right, get this guy the hell out. And then the other 80% are just like, what's the proof? What did he do? Like, who are the alleged victims? Like, they need to come forward. We need to know who they are. Like, we need to go through like a full trial for all of this stuff. And it's just like, nah, we really don't. Like, how many accusations does it take, especially when you're talking about something like playing Magic the Gathering? Like that's a privilege. This is not like a
Right, yeah.
God-given right that you have.
Yeah. Yeah, it just really feels like anytime someone is being ousted because of some like fucked up social thing they did, which is basically always, in my mind, a bigger deal than cheating. And I think cheating at the game is a big deal for the reasons you listed of it being stealing, and just like all the stuff, just with general, like, I don't know, sportsmanship and like integrity of the game and stuff. I think cheating at Magic is a very fucked up thing to do. That being said, I think it's way, way, way more fucked up to do any number of these, like sexually assault someone, be racist, be misogynistic, be transphobic. Like, I think all these things are so much worse than cheating. So in my
Yeah,
mind, it's always like, why is this not an immediate like, oh yeah, fuck that guy? Like it's always like I don't know. I think it's in my experience in the competitive scene, there's a bunch of people where it's like basically everybody is like, oh yeah, fuck that guy, but also like, no one's really gonna like say it, and some number of people are still gonna fuck with them. And you've got a lot of like fairly prominent people in the space who either they themselves have done shitty things that we just kind of sweep under the rug, or they are very close to people who've done fucked up shitty things that we all just kind of sweep under the rug. And the only reason I can find that they get these passes is because they are good at Magic, which is such a stupid reason to give someone a pass on these things.
agreed. I think if we're categorizing these things, cheating would be a misdemeanor, and
Yeah.
any sort of sexual assault would absolutely be a felony, and it's not even
Yeah.
close. And
Yeah, not at
so
all.
the difference between these two things really put a spotlight on how bad things are, just in terms of the Magic community as a whole, because one of these things is way, way worse, and I would even argue that, like, Yuya and the things that he stood for were, more reasonable to defend than the kind of person that Owen was. Like, Owen, also very good at
Mhm.
Magic, right? But, like,
Mm.
was did care about, fair play and stuff like that. Like, Owen also never had any, like, cheating allegations or whatever, but, like, was kind of a dick just in general. And I don't know, it's just like, really, like, that's your guy, you're gonna defend him over this, is just what I really did not understand. And the fact that it was so different in terms of the numbers, where I unfollowed so many people because they were like, "Oh, sounds like what Owen did wasn't that bad." I was like, "That's crazy."
Yeah, I also feel like, because this is something I've talked about a couple times on various social media platforms, of just like my frustration with this sort of concept and phenomenon in the community. And every time I do, I get a lot of the same responses from people, which are like, okay, well, if there are these people that are just like known bad actors that everyone is just like letting slide, why don't you just name them? Why don't you just like call them all out, and then we all know not to fuck with those people? And I'll tell you the reasons I don't do that. One is because I am a woman, and at that, I am a trans woman on the internet. And I know what happens if I come after, by and large, a lot of cis men on the internet and start saying, like, yeah, this guy's racist. Yeah, this guy is a sex pest. Yeah, this guy is a groomer, Yeah, this guy's this thing, this guy's that thing. If I start saying all that, people are gonna be like, oh, okay, well, give us like binders and binders and binders of hard evidence.
Oh my
Give
god.
us so many receipts, give us so much. And also, when you do, it's not going to be enough, and we are going to attack you for this and villainize you. And frankly, Jerry, I just don't want to deal with that. I just don't want to deal with that bullshit.
Yeah, nor should it be your responsibility to do that. Like,
Yeah.
why it is all of our community, right? So, like,
Hmm.
why is it suddenly Niall's job to do this as a person who is like going to be the victim of these offenses too? when we're
Right.
talking about SA, It's just
Yeah.
it's so absurd. But yeah, the moving goalpost during the Owen stuff was incredible. It was
Mm.
the most mental gymnastics I've ever seen in play ever.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain level, I think, of you don't wanna feel like you were wrong about somebody, like, it feels like a person. I mean, it's kinda like what we were describing earlier of you felt embarrassed that Yuya was ever your guy, right? I think a lot of people share that emotion. I just think while your response to that emotion is, "I'm embarrassed Yuya was my guy, he's no longer my guy, and I'm gonna, like, never associate with him again." I think a lot of people are like, they take that "I'm embarrassed that Yu-Gi-Oh! Was my guy," but they don't either they don't read it right or they're just so embarrassed that they can't, like, face it fully,
Yeah.
and instead it turns into, like, "I am going to dig and fight and claw my way out of this feeling by proving that actually I don't need to be embarrassed that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is my guy. I'm gonna prove that he's actually a good guy and didn't do this," and whatever, like, I think I think that is where people end up on a lot of these things, and it's certainly harder when it's, like, cheating at Magic, and cheaters love to do that on camera. It's so much more rare for, like, someone who has, sexually assaulted somebody to, like, do that on camera and publish it to thousands of watchers, That does happen, but it's rare, and even when it does happen, it's usually not enough evidence for people.
Yep.
But
Yeah, it was
a lot of the, like, racism and bullshit is very recorded, Like, it is, like, people said it with their whole chest on, like, their socials, and it's like, why do I still see you at events, Like, why do I still see you hanging out with, like, I don't know, some of the biggest names in the competitive scene? Like, why are you still, like, allowed at the same parties as other people, Like, why are you in these social circles at all?
yeah, it is certainly where someone can cheat and you're like, "Oh, what that person did affected me, therefore I'm gonna get offended." It's like, well, what this person did does not affect me. And
Mhm.
in fact, if I keep this person around, I either get clout, more clout, or uh perhaps through osmosis, I will become better at Magic the Gathering or whatever. And it's like end of the day, it is just me, me, me. That is all people seem to care about. And I think that for any sort of thing that you do care about, there is a level of discomfort that you are willing to accept in order to do a thing that helps that thing along, right? It's like if I love a person, I'm willing to do a thing that I don't wanna do in order to help them out, you know? Like, that is just what it is. But if you don't, actually care about your community, you don't actually care about women, you can't stop dealing with this person who is, like, very clearly having a negative impact on that portion of your community and in the largest way possible. Like, you're willing to do literal nothing. 0 discomfort. That's bananas to me.
Yeah, and it's really bananas to me because the amount of discomfort that's being asked of people in my mind feels so small. Like, to me, just being like, "Don't play Magic with this guy," is like a tiny infinitesimal ask. Find a new person to watch Magic content of.
Yeah.
Tiny thing to ask. Find a new Magic coach. Tiny thing to ask. Find a new member for your testing team. Tiny ask. Like, these are all, like, I'm just like, you're giving up so little. Like, I find it so hard to, like, get in the mind of someone being like, well, he's on our testing team. Well, like, okay.
I I view it I view it the same as you do. But I think what everyone else goes through is like, well, if I stop hanging out with this person, but like all of our mutuals still want to hang out with them, then maybe I lose all
Hmm.
those mutuals or whatever. And it's like there is just like this fear or whatever that you are giving up so much more. But again, it's just like, what are your actual convictions? Do you have any?
Hmm. Yep.
Because to me, it is very binary. Like it is not close. It's just if someone does something really shitty, even if I liked them a lot, I no longer like them. That's just how it's gonna go, you know? Like, same goes for uh, Seth MacKinnon, Therese Nielsen, like whatever. Like it is the same sort of thing. Like, okay, yeah, you have talent, but you also kind of suck. So I just
Mhm.
want to give you no air.
Yeah. Yeah, fuck you. You know, like it's I don't know. I think you're right. I think you are like hitting on something very true, which is there is this sort of like herd mentality aspect to it. And there is this scary feeling of like, what if I'm the only one willing to like fully not fuck with this person? And then in doing so, instead of them getting kicked out of this like space, I am kicking myself out of this space. You know, it feels like a lot hangs in the balance. But to me, it's kind of a thing of like, okay, well, if all of these people that I am playing this game with are willing to keep hanging out with this piece of shit, how badly do I really want to play a game with these people? Like, no matter how good they
Yep.
are, you
Yep.
know?
The thing that I realize is like if the space is gonna be that way, it's not my space. It's not where I
Yeah.
wanna be. And okay, yeah, maybe you kick yourself out, but like you're doing yourself a favor, honestly. Go
Hmm.
find better people. Go find people who actually give a shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a similar thing to how I feel anytime I'm in a relationship where I'm just like, I would rather confront a thing where the end result could be, oh, we are just incompatible. Like there's just some large unsurmountable thing between us. We should just break up. I would rather just confront those things. Like I think it's crazy, especially in like I'm in my 30s, that like sometimes when I date people, they don't like want like pretty early into dating. I want to have conversations about like, do you like want to have kids? Is that like a big deal to you? Because even if we're like light years away from that actually being a thing between the two of us, it's still a thing where if they're like, yes, it is like my sole goal in life. I will be like raising a family. If that's not my shit, like what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like we can keep dating, but let's just at least set the thing in both of our heads that's like this can only go so far because I don't want to start a family and that's like all of your shit. Or if someone's like, this is my goal for the far future. Even though we're not there, let's just figure out like those are compatibility problems, right? Like let's just figure out if we're on the same wavelength. And I don't know. I think it's a similar thing with these sorts of things where it's like, am I compatible with the people that I'm playing this game with? And one of those compatibility checks is, do we like hanging out with pieces of shit?
Yeah.
I don't.
Uh it's funny that you bring that up because like the relationship stuff
Mm,
because I definitely agree and I have definitely been in relationships both when I was more like that but also with people who would just avoid any sort of like confrontation whatsoever because
mhm.
it could lead to upsetting the status quo. And it's like, well this is comfy and change is bad or whatever and it's like now we kind of do need to figure this out though, you know? We should have this conversation. It might make things like awkward and bad and maybe we break up, but it's way worse if we don't have it until 5 years from now and then we break up then. Like that's just stupid. What are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's so many little things like that, that's like, what if someone's like, I always want to live with like 6 cats and 3 dogs or something. And I'm like, that's way too many pets. You and I are never going to live together. And they're like, oh, okay. So that's just like a compatibility issue. Um,
7 cats, 2 dogs? Like is that okay? What?
no way. No
Uh,
way. That's way too many. First of all, I made
8
a promise
cats?
to Mitzi that I'll never make her live with another cat again. So
Whoa.
she hates cats, Jerry. She fucking hates cats. Like I've
Well,
never met anybody who hates cats as much as Mitzi hates cats.
people who hate cats aren't my people. So,
Well, she's a cat who hates cats.
yeah.
So. But there's one cat that she tolerated, and then there was one cat that I think she really loved. And he was like an old man when she was like a kitten. And they like got along together pretty well. After that, I've never seen her enjoy the presence of another cat whatsoever. She fucking hates him. She just wants to hang out with me. She's gotten to a point where she's pretty chill with people, but that's she's turning 11 this year. Just for
Yeah.
the rest of her life, I just want to give her that little gift of like, you know what? I can just arrange it to where you never have to live with another cat.
Yep.
And that's what I'm gonna do for you. That's what I'm gonna do for you. So yeah, that'd be a compatibility issue. If they were like, I've got like 3 cats, I'd be like, well, they're just gonna like overpower Mitzi and she's gonna hate it, and I'm not gonna do that to her. So no. Bye.
Well, if you want to arrange it so that there are no, sex pests in the magic community, that'd be cool.
Brother, I'm trying. I'm trying. I This is why I think that like gossip is a very like truly valuable social tool. I think gossip gets a really bad rap as being like bullshit that is said about people because you're like unwilling to confront them or something. I don't think that's true. I think gossip serves a very useful role as being this sort of like whisper network of, this is how a lot of people communicate shit that like they can't really communicate publicly because of the aforementioned baggage that comes along with that. So, it becomes a thing where like if I see a friend of mine hanging out with a person that I know is a piece of shit, I'm gonna pull them aside. I'm gonna be like, hey, just so you know, that guy's a piece of shit. Here's all the reasons. Here's everything that I know. Here's everything that's been conveyed to me. Here's the things I've witnessed directly, like that kind of stuff. And then they're like, oh, okay, cool. I got it. And if they want to keep hanging out with that person, that says a lot to me. But like, I've
Yep.
done my job. I have communicated to, and that's also why, like, when I post about this stuff, I'll also get DMs of people being like, well, just tell me who these people are. I'm like, no, like I'm not gonna do that either. Like if you are like a friend of mine and I see that you're hanging out with these people, I'll let you know. We'll have a chat. Don't worry. Don't worry your pretty little head about it. But otherwise, that's just too much, man. You're asking too
Yeah.
much of me.
Like, I'm sure there's a non-zero amount of people who do have good intentions,
Mhm.
but ultimately what ends up happening is they're just getting themselves ready to move the goalposts on you every
Mhm.
time. And so
Mhm.
the whole like, "Oh yeah, just name names." Like, "We'll believe you," And then we won't fuck with those people. It's just like, "Yeah, okay, dude, come on."
It's exhausting.
I can't imagine.
Yeah. But you can just it's okay to have been wrong about a
It is.
I get wrong about people all the time. I'm real easily tricked. We've talked about this. Like as part of life to me is just accepting like, oh, yep, there's another one. Whoopsies.
I like being right, but
Oh, being right's awesome.
in order to be right, it generally means that you have to be wrong a bunch first until you get there.
Mhm.
And the story's pretty bad if you're just right all the time. It's like where is that training arc, right? And yeah, being wrong, you learn stuff. Learning is tight as hell because then hopefully you don't do the same shit again.
Yeah. And I mean, the doing is such an important part because I feel like it's really common that you'll be like, hey, this guy said this fucked up thing. And they're like, oh my God, that's awful, Queen. I can't imagine. But there is a pro tour coming up. And I could use his help, if I could just
Yeah.
like we agree that it's fucked up, but like if I could just, just for a little bit longer. It's like
He
why?
usually has
There's
a
so
good
many
deck.
people. There's
I
so
don't
many
know.
people who are
Pick anyone else.
good at this game. Yeah.
Anyone else. There's so many
Yeah.
videos or whatever. Who cares?
Yeah.
Uh
Yeah.
two funny Yuya things before we get off of him completely. One I
Mhm.
found in my replies to the 2022 tweet, which I thought was hilarious and very sadly had 0 likes on it whatsoever, which was just this dude mentioning that Rich Hagon delivered the news of Yuya's DQ like it was Walter Cronkite talking about the Kennedy assassination, which is
Is
true.
there
It's
is
it
there
was it
is
was
there
just
footage of this?
true. Oh yeah, it's in the again, I think it was London. I can try and find it, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh
Oh, that's really good.
just devastating news for everyone. The other thing that I remembered and then checked the timestamps on this to figure out exactly like how close it was. It was brutal. It was literally 2 months before he got caught cheating. Uh, he posted, "It's my birthday. Here's my Amazon wish list." And I was like, "Well,
Mhm.
that's my guy. Imma get him something, you know? I want my guy to be happy." And
Yeah.
I went on his thing, and I bought the most expensive thing. It was like a $150 Blu-ray box set, for K-On!, an anime that I knew was Yuya's favorite, 'cause
Mhm.
I'm a good fan, you know?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
he got it in the mail. He tweeted about it, tagged me, you know? It was great. And then 2 months later, DQ for cheating.
That's tough, Jerry. That's tough. That's tough. I
Oh,
think
I
in a just world, he should have to mail you that anime thing.
It would be nice, but I'm not I'm not gonna expect that from someone who's been cheating for 10 years, you know? Oh, I
Yeah,
guess
yeah,
I
yeah.
lied. I have another thing. Uh,
Okay.
my best friend Josh used to do this thing that was really nice, where we would just be sitting there hanging out, you know, like he's on his computer, I'm on my phone, whatever, and he would just say, "Remember when you beat Yuya in the finals of a PT?" And then I just like look up at him and he'd look at me. We both have like shit-eating grins on our faces, and I'm just like,
Oh, that's
and
really good.
it was it was just so cool because like we both looked up to that guy, right? And it was
Mhm.
super cool for me to beat him, and I'm sure Josh felt the same. It was super cool that, you know, my best friend's best accomplishment was also beating this guy. It's, you know, making it to NBA finals and beating LeBron in his prime kind of stuff, you know? And he did that every so often. And it always felt good. And I was always like, Josh is a good friend because of that. It was just the exact sort of thing he could say to make us both laugh, make us feel good, pick me up if I was down, whatever. We don't do that anymore. We can't because it has a different connotation now. And
Yeah.
on one hand, I beat this guy who was cheating in the finals of kind of
Sick.
dope,
Yeah.
but realistically, it just makes me think of all the other stuff and it makes me sad. And so, yeah, we don't do that anymore. We don't get to do that anymore.
That's a bummer. Fuck you, yeah, for cheating.
He was so good too. He didn't have to cheat. Like,
That's the crazy thing
ah,
about cheaters. That's the crazy it's such a compulsion. It's such a, like, you don't need to do this.
Ah, why? Why couldn't you have just been the ideal standard?
Yeah. That's
Oh,
no cigar.
I don't care if you won 20% less, dude. Come on.
Well, anyways, to cap it all off, kill your darlings. If you find out someone you thought was cool sucks, update what's in your brain. You
They
know,
suck. They're not
they
cool
suck now.
anymore.
And in fact, they always sucked. You were just wrong, and that's okay. You're allowed to
Yeah,
be wrong.
being
But,
wrong's cool too.
yeah, deal with that. Process it. Now, we have reached the part of the episode where we will answer a couple of questions that have been sent in. And of course, we will start with a question from Briar. Now, usually, ahead of time, I will send Jerry questions as they come in. I didn't do that this time because I was busy. So, Jerry has not seen this question from Briar,
Nope.
but
Still
I'm
the
going to
goat.
read
I
it
don't care what
anyway.
the question is.
Yeah, he's going to hear it in real time. All right, so Briar says, my question this week is, with the excitement surrounding the Final Fantasy spoilers, what's an IP you'd love to see get the universes beyond treatment? No matter how niche, the more obscure or guarded the IP, the funnier LMAO. Thanks as always, Briar.
Did you sandbag this on purpose?
No,
Because you know I hate this stuff?
it's really funny because I do too. I get asked this question. I don't know why, this might be the number one question people ask me about Magic. Where they're just like, "What would you love to see in Universes Beyond?" And I am always like a stop sign,
Yeah.
like a
What slop
break.
would you just
Yeah. But
look?
I feel like that defeats the spirit of the question.
Yeah, look, to put it into perspective, Final Fantasy, I've played every mainline entry. I've not finished all of them. I did not finish 8 and 10 for various reasons. I did not play either of the MMOs because I knew they would ruin my life because I would love them so much and do nothing but play them. I've played most of them multiple times. Love Final Fantasy almost as much as Magic the Gathering, right? I don't
Mhm.
want them together. I just don't.
Yeah.
I look at some of these cards, some of them really brilliant. Can tell a
Mhm.
lot of love went into the set. But some of them I just get angry
Mhm.
and rant at folks like I was doing last weekend. But if it's not Final Fantasy for me, I don't know what is. That's kind of the thing. That's why I don't think I have a great answer to this question. I mean, I hope it is something that that translates well, and I hope that they focus on doing things that is like effective altruism. You know, like
Mhm.
you get the most people into Magic via the fewest number of UBs, and I think
Yep.
things like Fallout maybe fell short of that. Certainly, Assassin's Creed did too.
Assassin's Creed, yeah. Um, so my answer to this has always been a little complicated because what I think is the best Universes Beyond was like the first one we ever did, right? Like I thought Lord of the Rings was a slam dunk. I felt like Lord of the Rings close enough in aesthetic, in vibe, in all of this stuff to just fit seamlessly into Magic. You know, like I don't feel any sort of way when I see someone cast like an Orcish Bowmasters in Modern. You know, I'm like, sure, you know, that's a Modern card, whatever. I mean, don't get me started on the fucking One Ring, but that's like a separate issue.
Yes.
But you know, the set I think just worked so well as a Magic set and worked so well as a homage to Lord of the Rings and like, you know, getting those fans excited, of which I am one. But also, maybe most importantly, did such a fucking good job of getting new players excited about Magic. You know, like I have never experienced a pre-release like Lord of the Rings pre-release. It was so cool and so special. So many new players, a ton of women, like more women than I think I've
Hell
ever
yeah.
seen at a Magic event. Just really cool. Just really, really cool. I think they really nailed it. I think Lord of the Rings was kind of the perfect one. Now, I think that is also like what makes it terrible because I think it's like this insidious thing where Lord of the Rings success is why so much of the rest of this is happening. And basically everything since Lord of the Rings I found pretty grating. You know, like I don't think Fallout fits at all. I don't think I mean, Assassin's Creed should have fit better. Honestly, like I don't give a shit about Assassin's Creed games. It's just not for me. If you love it, I love that for you. Uh it's crazy to me how much it feels like Assassin's Creed doesn't fit when it's like this could fit. Like this
Yeah.
I don't know. That one really feels like fumbled for strange reasons. Doctor Who abysmal. The Marvel stuff is abysmal. You know, just all this stuff. And then Final Fantasy, I'm in such a weird spot with it cuz like Final Fantasy 10 might be my favorite game of all time. Which is funny cuz it's one of the only ones you said you haven't finished, but you know, I've played it all the way through like a dozen times. I've 100%ed it. It's my shit. Uh I love every single card that has Final Fantasy 10 art on it cuz I'm just like, "Ooh, Final Fantasy 10." Uh but by and large, I don't love a lot of like what the Final Fantasy 10 cards are doing. You know, like I'm way more excited about like Syncopate with Seymour on it and Prismatic Ending with Yuna on it than I am about like this is what they've decided uh this character does, you know.
Yeah.
I'm just like, it's I don't know. I don't think they were ever going to like land this one. Like I don't think they were ever going to stick the landing on this for me because I love it so much, you know.
It is so easy to critique,
Yeah,
you know?
totally.
And I've certainly found myself doing that. I knew I was gonna do it though.
Yeah, yeah. I think so I've played a bit of limited for the set because I'm like an ambassador or whatever. They've sent me product. I've had the opportunity to play with other NDA'd people. I think the limited could be really good. Uh I there's no real way to know until like it's out for real and people start playing with it and like, you know, 17 lands bullshit gets figured out. But like it has the vibe to me as someone who's played a lot of sets before all that stuff was out. You can always like kind of tell like, oh, this will be fun or like, it's a set, you know. I think this one will be good. Maybe I'll be wrong. Time will tell. I think the limited could be really good.
I mean, the limited sets for the most part have been very good. So that's generally just not a thing I'm super worried about.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but if there are a lot of things where, you know, where I see this card and I just get mad again, that's
Mhm.
gonna make it so I play less, you know,
Well,
regardless of how good it is.
I think the problem with something like Final Fantasy specifically for me is that we are servicing like 15 games. And so everyone's favorite guy has to be in there, which like cool. But also like we have like 150 legendary creatures in this
Yeah.
set.
Yep.
Like what the fuck? Like what do you
I I
mean?
th- I think it would have been better if they did not have to do all 15 games.
Yeah.
And you could make things more mechanically true to what the games were about and what the characters were about, which is kind of my main issue right now. But
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Whatever. Anyway, suffice to say, Briar, we have taken your question, not answered it in the spirit it was asked. If the heart of the question is what other intellectual property do you like? I like Pokemon. I like Animal Crossing. I don't want them to be magic cards, but I do like them. So, I hope that helps.
I'm also a Pokemon enjoyer.
Yeah. God, I would hate the magic fucking Pokemon universes beyond. What a nightmare. Uh all right, and then our next question comes from Red Rabbit on Blue Sky. They say, "Hi, I have a question for you and Jerry's podcast. Do you have any favorite weird card interactions or rules edge cases in Magic? And if so, what are they? Have you ever had a match that was won or lost because of such weird rules minutia?" Jerry?
You froze for me. Sorry.
Oh, welcome back.
Hi.
Um, did you get the question or no?
I remember it from before, so that's good.
All right,
I
great.
also got a screen grab of you.
Oh no. Oh no.
This is
That's
how
an
you froze.
unfortunate. That's an unfortunate freeze. It's an unfortunate freeze. All right, so Jerry, favorite weird rules bullshit.
I don't know if this is my favorite, but this is the one that maybe I remember the most fondly, where
Mhm.
my opponent, we were in a Death Shadow mirror match. And it was like the Jund Traverse Shadows. We got some Tarmogoyf, some Death Shadows, and pretty complicated-ish board state where opponent has 3 big things, and I think I have 2 things, and it looks like I'm gonna have to just double chump block, and then I'm probably just gonna draw my card and concede. But because of the rules, my opponent attacks me. I think for simplicity, let's just say it's 3 Tarmogoyfs that are
Sure.
5/6, and I have 2 5/5 Death Shadows. So I put Death Shadow on 2 Tarmogoyfs, take the other one, take the 5 damage, and now my Death Shadows have 5 damage on them. But damage kills creatures as a result of state-based actions, right?
Right.
And so when state-based actions finally get checked, I am now at 5 less life total because of combat
Mhm.
damage. And now my
Mhm.
Death Shadows are bigger. They survive combat. They don't eat the Tarmogoyfs,
Right.
but I get to untap and then attack for lethal. And
Yeah.
the reason this was my favorite was because we were 7-0 at a Grand Prix, something like that. And also because my friend who was I think like an L3 at some point was walking by and then was like just immediately U-turned to come watch the game because she wanted to see if I knew the interaction. And then when I did it, killed my opponent, he was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot that that's how that worked." And my judge friend just kind of gave me like the knowing nod and walked away. And I'm just like, "Yes."
That's great. That's great. I so for me, I find this question kind of tricky because I find most of these things to be fucking infuriating. I find it to be so like when you tell me like, yeah, you can cast a stomp from your graveyard with a Rin and 6 emblem. I'm like, go fuck yourself. That's so stupid. Like it works because you do an illegal game action, but by the time the game checks if you've done an illegal thing, it's no longer an illegal thing. So it's like fine or
No
whatever.
harm, no foul.
That's bullshit. That's
It is bullshit.
insane. And it makes me so mad. And I think it makes me mad as like an advocate for new players where I'm like, how the fuck is
Yeah.
anyone supposed to know that? Like how the fuck is it? I feel similarly about like really basic things like protection, you know? I think protection on its own would be a fine thing. But when you introduce uh things like hexproof, things like shroud, and it's like which one means what, it gets really complex. My mind was blown as I was playing. So I was playing with the Final Fantasy commander decks with some friends, and the Cloud deck is like a Voltron Equipment Matters deck, right? They put, hold on, because I get the two. Which is the boots that gives Shroud? Is that Lightning Greaves or is it the other one?
Lightning Greaves is Shroud, yeah.
Okay. They put Lightning Greaves in the Cloud deck instead of Swiftfoot boots.
Yeah.
Why? Because once he gets the Greaves, you can't do the one fucking thing the deck does.
Yeah, put more equipment on him. You have to like move the Greaves, which
you have to have a creature to move the Greaves. Yeah, it's like, and it's not a thing where it's like they have both boots. They only have the Greaves.
My guess is that Lightning Greaves is more expensive and they wanted to reprint it.
It's just like, it made me so mad because I was like, new players aren't even going to know that they're playing this wrong. Like, what they're going to do is they're going to put the Greaves on Cloud and they're just going to keep putting equipment on him. And they're not going to know that they're breaking the rules, right? Because like, it's so unintuitive that they would think, okay, so the deck that WotC built for me, that they gave to me, a new player, to be like, hey, play this Voltron deck, they wouldn't put a card in here that turns the deck off, right? Like they wouldn't put a card in here. That would be insane. Especially when there is a twin sister to the card that doesn't turn the deck off. That would be crazy. That would be cuckoo bananas. They wouldn't do that to me. So they're just gonna like push it on, and they're just not even gonna know. They're just not even gonna know that they're doing it wrong, and that drives me crazy. So yeah, I find a lot of these to be pretty infuriating. One that I think is fun for me specifically is Sig River Guide. Merfolk, 1 white, 1 blue, has an ability for a colorless and a white. Target Merfolk gains protection from the color of your choice till end of turn. I love this so much because I love the games I have to play in my own head about deciding when to give a creature protection from white, or protection from blue. Because once you do, and once that is resolved, Sig can't give them more protection.
So this one you like?
Yeah, well, I hate it for new players. I think it's bullshit. Okay. But this is like for me specifically, as someone who's played with this card since I started Magic. This is one of the first Magic cards I ever touched, And I played this wrong for years without even knowing it, right? Like I would just be like, give this guy protection from blue. And then your spell fizzles. And then you try to target with something black. And I'm like, all right, give it protection from black. And then everyone that I played with is like, you got me, or whatever. And it's like, oh, I shouldn't have been able to do that. Like I should have, like once the blue one had resolved, I can't give it more. I could, while it's on the stack, give it protection from everything if I had the mana, but like then you just, target it with the black spell. Like there's like such a little tricky game to it, but only if everyone present understands how that works and new players don't understand how that works.
Yeah.
So I like it when I get to that point, but I think it sucks fundamentally. So yeah, that's my answer for you, Rod Rabbit. Thank you for your question. Well, Jerry, I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for your Yuya tales. Sorry that your goat ended up being a cheater. That sucks.
Happens. I hope Yuya's enjoying his K-On! Box set.
What if he is? What if he like watches it like every day and he's like, this is the best gift I've ever gotten?
I'm pretty sure he probably does because he loved that shit.
Oh, that's really fucking funny. Well, tune in next week when we have a very different episode where I'm just going to be asking Jerry a ton of questions. How fun. How lovely. Bye-bye. Love you so much. Bye.